Hi, this is Lorraine. I'm creating a video on a topic that came into me a few weeks ago, but I didn't really write down or anything, and so yesterday I was thinking about it and thinking I should talk about it, especially because of what's been going on. And so what had come into me was that right now, this shift that we're going through, this push and pull, that's manifesting in a lot of weather phenomenon, earthquakes, storms, and then even heightened emotion is a result of this push and pull we're going through, of this transition between new and old, or old and new. Even me, I guess the best way to really share this is to talk about my own experience. A lot of times I want to hold on to old things, family, my work, just very traditional types of jobs, traditional ideologies, these structures that I was raised within. I really am conflicted internally about moving forward. And it's not that I don't have passion for the new. It's every time I look forward to the new, I think of the things I'm leaving behind, right? The people, the things, all those things that were, even if they were uncomfortable or unhealthy, they were familiar, right? And I knew how to navigate that. And so over the last 6 years, even from the time I separated from my husband, my now ex-husband, there's always been this conflict of the past versus the present versus the future, right? Where I was, where I am, and where I see myself going. And so this push and pull, this movement between that, it's very tumultuous internally, it's tumultuous emotionally, mind, body, and spirit. And so this emotion, this movement I go through when I go back and forward, it is physically being manifested on this planet through these weather phenomenon, earthquakes, okay, even through this I don't want to say mob mentality, but when people come together in this aggressive state, whether it be just verbally or physically, it's a physical manifestation of what we are going through individually, but as a collective. And I feel like that's very important to say, because over the last 3 years I talked a lot about this an unbalanced energy, this negative energy, even referred to it as this cabal energy, and how its negativity is creating this state that we're in, this transition that we're going through, the unbalanced portion of it. But I would say presently, where we are, what this message that came in a few weeks ago was very clear in sharing with me, that it's more now about our inner conflict of transitioning, releasing the old and moving towards the new. And that is completely okay. Now, I'm not here to judge. Actually, I'm not even here to say that's okay or that's not okay. But what I am here to say is that this divine source energy isn't judging people, and this is a very strong feeling that I have in my body. It's not judging us for this movement. that we're going through, okay? It's very natural. It's very natural. It's a process. This releasing is a process that we're going through, okay? And different people are at different places. But the fact that this is getting to be so strong right now in this place, and I feel that it will get stronger, it just tells me that all those feelings that were deep within us are rising to the surface. All those emotions that we were burying and we were just tolerating where we were. We were in the past, and like I said, there's a lot of things in my past that I need to let go, but it's comfortable, it's familiar. Even though it's toxic and unhealthy, I know how to deal with that, right? And I got to a place in my past, recent past, where I'm like, I have to let this go, and I started working through that, right? There's a lot of people that are just starting that journey of, I have to let this go, and they're starting to work on that. And because, like I said, some people are on the front end, some people will be on the middle, and some will be bringing up the rear. But that's okay, because we're doing this together. We're in this together, right? We're all working through this together. But as that middle group, that's where the largest bunch of us are going to be, start coming into this awareness of what they need to release. There's going to be that shift, that really intense shift in emotion, mind, body, and spirit that they go through, which is going to affect the collective, and it's going to affect the planet. And so we're at the beginning of that part of our transition, okay? And because we're at the beginning, if I may, I'll say most of us that are at the beginning of are on the cusp, on the front end of this movement, that's our energy would be the beginning rumbles, okay? And then as the larger groups of people start to move in, that energy is going to build, right? And so I would say earthquakes, weather phenomenon, water, issues with water, flooding, it's going to become greater, even more so than now, because of the larger number of people who are starting to move through this transition of releasing the old and coming into the new. And it's just, it has to do with that conflict. It has to do with that inner conflict of letting go and moving forward, what they have to let go of in order to come into the new. And like I said, there's no judgment. It's okay. Whatever it takes, we go through that, and we go through it together, and we support each other. That's, I think, what's the most important thing. For 3 years, I've been talking about compassion, understanding, unconditional love, tolerance, right? How important that is for all of us as we move into this new place. But as people are moving through this inner conflict, and they're moving forward and back and wanting to hold on to the old, and then they're like, no, moving into the new with all this moxie, right? And then all of a sudden it gets kind of scary because they see how far away they are from the old, the familiar, and they want to go back to that. And they take a few steps back, and they settle in for a minute, and they get that security back, and then they'll be back. Trust me, they'll be back moving forward, because that becomes, as we become more familiar with the new, we step more into that energy of the new. Every time we go back into the old, it becomes more uncomfortable. It becomes more intolerable, okay? And we just crave the new. That is just becomes something that we can't live without. And whatever it takes, whatever we need to go through to get to that new. Whatever we need to go through to get to that new, we will do it, okay? And so many of us know the challenges, and we have found the tools that we need to drive forward. And we are here to support those who are going through that. And we do so willingly, we do so with love and compassion, and tolerance. And we allow people to have their moments where they fall, and we're there to help them get up when they're ready. And they have to ask, because we don't enable. They have to ask. We're always there, ready to help. Sorry, my brothers just came in, and one thing I learned from having brothers that are drug addicts, like, I'm always there to support you, but I can't enable you. It doesn't help. So that message came in really strong, very, very strong. How this transition from the old into the new, and this inner conflict, this back and forward and back that we'll go through, mind, body, and spirit. So it's internally and externally is what's creating this conflict and manifesting physically on our world through, again, weather phenomenon, the water, and even emotional outburst or turmoil or movements, meaning groups becoming angry, whether it's verbally or physically, and acting out in violent or aggressive ways. That is part of this inner conflict that's happening. And it'll all pass. We'll move through it. But I think that's really important to mention, because it's not punishment, okay? These events are not punishment. We are manifesting them. They're not punishment by a higher power, by the divine. It's a physical manifestation of our own emotional state as a collective, okay? So it's so important. Accountability is very important as we move through this transition. We have created the world that we live in. Even though there was a lot of manipulation and a lot of negativity, we created the world that we're living in, and now we are shedding that those old archetypes, those old constructs, those old ways of being, paradigms. As we shed those things and move forward, we go through this process of releasing, this conflict of releasing, right? And as emotional beings, it's just very natural that we want to hold on to familiar, okay, or things that we know, or that make us feel safe, or that are comfortable. It's only natural. But again, every step forward into this new, and as we get a taste of what is there and what is waiting for us, this old becomes less comfortable, and it inspires us to drive forward into the new, okay? The other thing I wanted to mention really quickly was I watch a few astrologers on video platforms, YouTube. And what another message that came in very strong was, I really like to watch Pam Gregory and Roland Legrand, I think it is, Ablas, is it Ablas? Astrology. I'll put him in the description. But they mostly talk about like traditional Western astrology, and they talk about our sun, our moon, and our planets in our solar system. And these planets have shorter cycles as they revolve around the sun and revolve around the earth and interact with our planet and our sun and our moon, right? Within like less than 100 years, most of them, like less than 100 years as they move around the planets. If we're talking about like Mercury retrogrades happen 4 times a year, right? And so I don't want to get, I'm not really big on astrology. I love astrology, I just don't know a lot about it. But what I wanted to say is okay. Sorry about that. What I wanted to say was when I watch Pam Gregory, she refers to, I think, a lady named Kelly Hunter, and then another lady that she talks with on her channel, Heather Ensworth. Both of those astrologers work with planets or asteroids in the Kuiper Belt. I think they call it the Kuiper Belt. These planets, asteroids have like 1,000, 10,000 year cycles, right? And Haumea is the one that keeps coming to mind. She's the Hawaiian goddess, and they talk about her all the time. And I don't want to get into the symbolism. I'm only bringing this up because we as a people, when we started learning about astrology and working with astrology, we only work with the planets within our solar system, and those have shorter cycles, okay? And a lot of those cycles happen within our lifetime. So we can, what do they call it? Is it a Saturn return? Is it the Saturn return that happens, like, that one's like, it happens once or twice in a lifetime? I think that's what it's called. And people go through this huge change or transition in their lives. My point being is that we are moving from this shorter cycle of this life here on this planet, where we live, I think the average lifespan is somewhere in the 70s or maybe 80, and which is conducive to these cycles in astrology. But now we are being influenced by these Kuiper Belt objects, and we become aware of these Kuiper Belt objects, which have 1,000, 10,000 year cycles, okay? And they are affecting us, and we are aware of how they're affecting us. And the very strong message that came in is we are aware of these planets or these asteroids that are in these 10,000 year cycles, because we are going to be living long enough to see the effects of these Kuiper Belt objects in our lifetime. And so that message was that our lifespan is going to expand exponentially. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't get a time frame. They didn't say starting on this date everybody's going to live 1,000 years, and then starting on this date it's going to be 5,000 years. They didn't give me that message. They never do that. But it was a very clear message that our lifespan is going to be expanding greatly. And so the other thing that came in when that information was coming in about astrology and how we're moving to this more expansive, broader perspective of astrology by bringing in those Kuiper Belt objects was a lot of the constellations and a lot of the symbolism in astrology was based on, from what I've read, just from what I've read, when I do research on the constellations, it just seems like it's a lot of Greek mythology, right? A lot of Persephone. I've read a lot about Persephone because she kept on coming up. Who's the hunter? I can't remember the hunter. There's a constellation that has to do with the hunter. But it seemed to me that a lot of the stories behind the astrology go back to Greek mythology. And as we move out into these Kuiper Belt objects, it seems to be more expansive. I go back to Haumea, who is a Hawaiian goddess. And it speaks to me about indigenous people, getting back to the root of stewardship, okay? So the Greek mythology seemed to be more about earthly ego. Okay, the Greek mythology seemed, so we had the gods of Olympus, see, and the Titans, and those battles seemed to be rooted, for me, I felt that, and the message was that the message was that the Greek mythological stories are rooted in ego. Okay, so this Western astrology within the solar system is rooted more in earthly ego. Okay, this smaller, shorter cycled astrology. I don't know how else to refer to it. But when we expand out into this Kuiper Belt, the symbolism that I kept on hearing when I would listen to these astrologers is more about stewardship. It goes back to the indigenous roots of stewardship. And so that tells me, as we expand out into this Kuiper Belt, into this new astrology, the big picture to me is Earth is moving back, our solar system is moving back to stewardship, to caring for our mother, and for caring for our planets as a whole. Our whole solar system is going through this transition and this healing, but Earth is the central focus. Okay, because we will affect everything else. Okay, I think there's so much more information coming in, but I think I want to stop there. I think that's a good place to stop. Okay. All right, I think that's it. Thank you.